I'm Dr. Jill Windy from Tales from the Road. I'm a licensed veterinarian, but I may not be your pet's veterinarian. The information on our show is for your general use and should never act as a diagnosis. Visit your veterinarian for any specific health issues your pet might have.
Hey, welcome back to Tales from the Road with Dr. Jill Windy. We are in the first episode of our Itchy Skin and Ouchy Ears series because itchy and ouchy is kind of a lot of what you do every day, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You have to deal with animals who come in with something that's itching, scratching, ouching, dripping, bleeding, scaling. Now, bleeding isn't usually itchy, but scaling, dry skin, all that. I told you, yucky stuff, okay? Yeah. So it's all that, but dermatology is a huge aspect of veterinary medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, when you're traveling, your pet is exposed to more potential skin issues, of course. So for some pets, the main source of infection of an itch is going to be an infection. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's probably three main groups of infections that we'll see. In the first group are the parasites. So these are our creepy crawlies. Fleas, of course, are probably one of our more common itchy infections or infestations. But we'll have to rewind back to the Flea University episode. We'll talk more about those at that point. But probably just one quick thing we'll mention about those guys in this segment is that you want to start preventing these guys in the very early spring. So February, March, early April, that kind of time frame. Now, the most fleas that we will see will be between about August and October. There's this huge bloom of just a huge crop of fleas that happen that time of year normally, at least in northern Indiana. But that is not when to start treating for fleas because you would much rather fight against and kick out 100 now than 10,000 later.
There you go. That's true.
So keep the preventives on. Use them as preventives, not treatments.
That's got it. And that's the stuff that goes on the back of the neck is probably the best stuff.
Back of the neck, oral. Yeah, we talked all about those. Yeah, different treatments.
Do that before you've got to treat your whole house.
Yeah, again, use it as a preventive.
That's right.
Don't have to use it as a treatment.
Okay, all right. Okay. So what else? Now we talked a little bit about mites. We have I think some pictures of some of these little guys.
Yeah.
What do we have there? Now what is this?
Well, this is a picture actually that one of our clients took of their pet, and we were kind of tracking the progress of this pet, and they said all the hair is falling out on my dog. What's going on? And well, just by looking at the picture, we can't tell what's going on. We have to do some detective work on that. But I wanted to show this picture because it is a really nice example of a skin problem. And this pet wasn't even particularly that itchy scratchy, but she just noticed that the hair was falling out. So while we're mainly talking about itchiness, just the skin, any skin changes in general, we need to be aware of. And what this pet actually had, come to find out, were Demodex mites. So these are one of our two main mange mites that we see in dogs. They're not contagious to people. All dogs already have them, but they overgrow into an infection when there's a problem. So again, these are one of our secondary problems for the most part. And we can see them out in these little patchy spots like this. Sometimes they're over the whole body. Sometimes they're just around one eye. They can be anywhere. And I think we have a picture of one of these little guys too.
Okay, let's go. This is a next shot is this a mange mite here?
Yeah, this is a Demodex mite. And the mite, you see this long strand of hair going across there diagonally. And he's sitting right on top of that.
Looks like a fish, sort of, from this angle.
A little bit, yeah. And so his head's up there around 11 o'clock, and he's got 8 little legs, and then a long, kind of cigar-shaped body and tail there. And so we'll see those little guys. Actually, on the slides, we scrape them off, and they're still alive on the slides. You can see them, little legs wiggling around and stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
It's yucky stuff.
Good
I told
yucky stuff.
Yucky stuff. Okay. so that's one kind of mite. You had another kind of mite that you were going to show us as well, and that is on our next slide. And what do we got here?
Well, what we have is a little, we sometimes call them scabies mites or sarcoptes. And these little guys, they're very, very hard to find on our tests. And so if we find when we take pictures of it.
Wow.
But so when you find it on a test, you know you have them. If you can't find them, you can't rule it out, kind of thing. These are going to be typically extremely itchy, and they can hang out on people for a little while and cause some itchiness there. We talked about that in our zoonosis episode.
Right.
But not typically, they really don't like people that much. But you can see them do that.
Now with mites, is there a seasonality to this as well? I mean, are they more prevalent in certain times of year than others, or are they more of a year-round? I know fleas, there's sort of a seasonality to it. The warmer weather, you tend to see them more, and in the fall maybe. But with mites, is it a little different?
Oh, a little seasonality, but I treated Demodex cases all winter.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't have to.
All right. Okay. So so what's our next sort of infection that we can have?
Well, probably our most common of the microscopic type infections are going to be the bacterial and the fungal infections. So bacteria, staph is the most common bacteria that we get off the skin, and we all have a form of staph on us. There are a lot of different species of staph, okay? And basically the main ones that come off of dogs are called staph intermedius. The ones that come off of most people are Staph aureus. Now the Staph aureus, the SA, is the SA that's part of MRSA, MRSA.
MRSA, okay.
Yeah, and this is one of the superbugs we talked about in segment 1, but we can isolate MRSA off of pets. So it is absolutely critical to get these infections treated appropriately, and if they're not responding well to treatment, to go ahead and get them cultured and make sure we're not dealing with something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, how do you spot staph? Is it still just you're spotting an itch, and that's about the pet owner can't really diagnose it themselves or have an idea?
No, not really. I mean, we look for some of the characteristics, reactions that the skin has to it, but you got to find it under the microscope to know for sure. And it's also a really good way to see how your response to treatment is going, because if you start off and you've got more than you can count on a slide, and then you do a progress exam and now there's 5 per field or something, you know how well you're doing with your treatment.
Right.
The other thing that we need to know about most of these bacterial infections is that they're usually a recurring problem. So it doesn't mean that the treatment didn't work the first time or something like that, but these are always secondary infections. And so it depends on how well that underlying problem that's causing them is being helped and how well that's being managed. And so you do have to kind of prep moms and dads for knowing that, hey, this is going to be something that's going to crop up from time to time. Okay,
so in our third category is what, the fungal infection, yeasts, and
yeasty
things
beasties.
Like that. Yeasty beasties, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us about those. Yucky stuff.
The yeasty beasties, yes.
Yeasty beasties, okay.
So these are the ones that come in and they're like, I washed my dog and he just smells after. And he always has this smell. And then we'll say, is it sort of like a cross between bread and old locker room? And they'll say, yes. I say, okay, we need to start finding the yeast.
There you go.
So, there is an odor to that infection, but not all yeast infections stink. Most of the time we're going to see these wherever there's warm, moist, kind of closed-in areas. So this is going to be armpits, ears, under the tail, in skin folds, between the toes, that kind of thing. Sometimes you'll also see the kind of this rust-colored stain to the hair. A lot of people will call it saliva staining. Well, it's not actually from the saliva because they're not that good at aiming right there, but and not anywhere else. But it's not saliva staining, but what it is an indication of those. And yeast are itchy, and so it makes you lick, and it keeps it moist, and which is like a little incubator for them. And so it can be a really easy problem to be self-perpetuating and turn into a real chronic issue, which especially in some area of the bodies will actually change the color of the skin, can change and make it all thickened up and like elephant-like, can cause some permanent damage.
Okay, so and you treat these with either with a variety of different kind of medications, with topical or oral or both.
Sometimes both.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes both. And I think it's also real important that even though these are classified as a fungal infection because they're yeast, they're not the same as ringworm.
Right. Okay.
Which is another fungal infection, but we treat that differently. So not the same as ringworm, but it kind of cousins.
Right. I had a question that came up, and it's a little off topic, but it's kind of a good thing to kind of close out on here probably.
Okay.
When you have a dog that is, or a cat that is itching and scratching and all, how do you, is that going to be is it going to be a different kind of activity if it's one of these things where they're kind of stressed out, it's sort of a stress-related thing, and they're just pulling their hair out just because they've got it's become a habit, or that kind of thing? Is there a way to kind of get an idea of which is it? Is it a real disease, or is it all in their heads?
Yeah. Well, even the behavioral causes are real diseases, but the no, there's not. I mean, you know, cats we call it barbering, you know, where they take all the hair off their belly. That can happen from food allergy or Demodex mites or over-grooming or thyroid disease. I mean,
so there may be an underlying cause that you still need to look at from that standpoint, as well as if they just are depressed.
Yeah, and if we have a behavioral reason, we usually get to that because we've ruled out all of the other easily treatable medical things.
Okay, great. All right. Well, great. We're going to be back with more on some of the treatments, the tools of the trade, and how the pet owner has to respond to the itchies and the scratchies on our next segment of Tales from the Road. So stay right here. Got a question or a comment for Dr. Jill Windy? Get in touch at tales@rvnn.tv or leave a voicemail at 877-578-RVNN extension 705. Hey, why not email a photo of you and your pet on the RV trail? We love pictures and we might just use it in an upcoming episode. Follow RV Newsnet on Facebook and Twitter, and you can receive text messages to alert you when we're streaming live by texting RVNN to 72727. That way you can join us live in the chat room, ask questions, and become part of the RV Newsnet family. Remember, any photos or other material submitted to us become the property of RV Newsnet and cannot be returned. Today's show is brought to you by Angie's List, where you'll find thousands of unbiased reports and reviews about service companies in your area. Whether you're looking for a roofer, plumber, house cleaner, dentist, or even a doctor, Angie's List members share their experiences with each other so that you can choose the service company that's right for your job. Companies can't pay to be on Angie's List, and the reviews come from people just like you who have had experience with the companies mentioned. To find out more, go to rvnn.tv and click on the Angie's List ad.